At 1:43 a.m. local time, in the northern Arabian Sea, a U.S. naval vessel moved through the black water under strict light discipline. There were no bright deck lights, no unnecessary voices over the radios, only the dim red glow inside the ship's operations room and the steady mechanical hum of a vessel that knew exactly where it was, even while the ocean around it vanished into darkness. At the sonar station, one operator leaned closer to the display. A possible transient. No one repeated it. No one had to. The signal was weak, almost buried beneath layers of ocean noise and the rolling hiss of the ship's own movement. It appeared for 2 seconds, then disappeared. It was not the sound of a merchant vessel. It was not random marine life. It was mechanical, controlled, intentional. The operator adjusted the gain and waited. Then it returned. Same bearing, different range. This time the sound was cleaner. A narrow trace moved just beneath the thermal layer, where cold and warm water divide the sea into invisible walls and bend sound in ways that can hide a submarine from anyone who is not listening closely enough. On the bridge, the officer of the deck kept his eyes forward. Sea state low, wind steady, visibility nearly zero beyond the ship's own shadow. On the surface, nothing looked unusual. Below the surface, everything had just changed. CIC, sonar has reacquired a possible submerged contact, bearing 086. The report came in calm, flat, professional. Inside CIC, heads turned, but no one rushed. This is how a serious situation begins aboard a naval vessel. Not with drama, not with shouting, but with a single line of sound in a headset. In the middle of the night. The tactical action officer stepped closer to the display. Classify. Too early, the sonar operator answered. Contact is intermittent. Slow machinery signature. Could be diesel-electric. Could be. The phrase hung in the air for less than a second. Then another operator stiffened. Second transient. A new bearing. Farther off the port quarter. Not crossing. Not random, not surface traffic. 2 possible submerged contacts, 2 different bearings, both below the layer, both faint enough to remain hidden from anyone careless, both moving in a section of water where no unknown contact should be that close to a US naval vessel without being identified, logged, and understood. The Tau did not raise his voice. Rebuild the picture. Passive only, no active.
I want trend lines. Across the room, watchstanders began feeding the contacts into the undersea plot. Bearings, timestamps, estimated movement. Nobody spoke more than necessary now. The air inside CIC changed. It felt tighter, heavier, more focused. On the bridge, the captain arrived without fanfare. He did not need to ask what was happening. He could read it in the posture of the watch team before anyone said a word. Captain on the bridge. The officer of the deck gave the update immediately.
Possible submerged contact detected by sonar, sir. We are now tracking 2 intermittent contacts.
The captain stepped toward the dark bridge window. For a moment, he saw only his own ship cutting through black water. Then he turned slightly toward the sound-powered phone.
CIC, Captain. Confirmed contacts?
Intermittent, sir, but trending. We are evaluating. That was enough. No bell sounded, no one ran, no one raised their voice. But the ship had begun to tighten, invisibly, from the inside. The captain gave the order.
Set enhanced undersea watch. Keep emissions controlled. I want maneuvering options ready.
Down in sonar, the first contact sharpened again for just a moment. Blade count unresolved. Machinery noise low. Disciplined. Whoever was beneath the surface was operating carefully. 12 seconds later, the second contact appeared again. A different acoustic fingerprint. Similar behavior. And that mattered. One submarine could be shadowing.
2 submarines could be building geometry. The undersea plot began to show something more concerning than simple proximity. The contact on the starboard side was not merely paralleling the ship, it was adjusting inward, slowly, patiently, making tiny corrections. The contact on the port side was wider and slower, but it was moving just enough to suggest coordination rather than coincidence. The sonar supervisor studied the board, then made the call. "Sir, they may be shaping." The TAO looked up.
Say again. They are not just passing through. Bearings indicate both contacts are adjusting to us. The room became even quieter. A naval vessel can respond to what it can see. Aircraft, surface contacts, fast-moving shapes above the waterline. But submarines are different. They let the ocean do half the work. They move beneath the horizon, beneath the light, beneath the noise of the surface. And at 1:49 a.m., this U.S. naval vessel may have had two of them moving into position at the same time. The captain was now in CIC, hands behind his back, voice steady.
"Assess likely intent."
The TAO answered carefully.
"Unknown at this time, sir, but the movement is not consistent with innocent passage. Nationality not confirmed."
The captain gave a single nod. No wasted motion.
"Assume professional. Assume coordinated. Do not assume they made a mistake." "Aye, sir."
At sonar, the operator caught the first truly clean slice of sound all night. A low mechanical whine.
Then a short rhythmic pulse. Controlled, compact, deliberate. Enough to make him pause. He looked at the supervisor. "Sir, that is not civilian." Before the supervisor can answer, the second contact tightens its bearing again. The undersea plot updates. One contact is drawing closer along the starboard side. The other is beginning to move ahead of the ship's projected path. This is not a chase. This is not a simple shadow. This is a setup. The TAO studies the geometry for 1 hard second, then says the words every surface sailor understands immediately. They're building a box. No one inside CIC moves quickly. They move correctly. Course recommendations appear on the displays. The aviation detachment is quietly notified. The flight deck crew is told to stand by for possible helo operations. Sonar keeps listening. The plot keeps refining. The bridge holds steady for now. Outside, the sea remains black and indifferent. Inside, the ship knows something is beneath it. Two things, and both are getting closer. At 1:52 a.m., the sonar operator leans into his headset without taking his eyes off the trace. "CIC, sonar. Both contacts have closed again. Recommend immediate re-evaluation." The captain looks at the updated geometry, then at the TAO. No fear, no drama, just decision. And in the cold red light of CIC, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. They are not passing. They are setting up. 1:52 a.m. local time. Inside the Combat Information Center, the undersea plot updates once more. Two submerged contacts, two separate bearings, both tightening. The starboard contact is no longer drifting in and out by chance. Its movement now shows a pattern: short corrections, controlled speed, deliberate angle changes. It is staying just outside easy classification while still reducing distance. The second contact, wider off the port side, is doing something even more concerning. It is not rushing in. It is pacing. Holding back just enough to shape the water ahead of the ship. That is the moment the US naval vessel stops treating the contacts as suspicious and starts treating them as a coordinated undersea approach. The tactical action officer studies the geometry for 3 silent seconds. Update closest point of approach. A watchstander answers immediately. If current trends continue, starboard contact crosses inside the danger arc. Port contact moves ahead of track in under 9 minutes. The TAO does not look away from the screen. So one applies pressure, the other closes the gate. No one argues. On the bridge, the captain receives the update through the sound-powered circuit. He stands in darkness, one hand resting lightly on the back of the chart table, eyes fixed forward into a sea that reveals absolutely nothing. "Helm, come right 5 degrees." "Aye, sir, right 5 degrees." The ship begins a subtle turn, not enough to announce alarm.
Just enough to test the contacts. Down in sonar, the reaction is immediate. "Starboard contact is adjusting."
And that matters more than anything. A whale does not do that. A drifting civilian submersible does not do that. Random undersea traffic does not mirror a course correction in the middle of the night. 20 seconds later, the second contact responds. A smaller correction, slower, but just as deliberate. The captain hears the report and gives no visible reaction, but the ship has its answer now.
They are being tracked.
Inside CIC, the sonar team begins pulling on every detail they can find. Machinery tone, rhythm, shaft noise, harmonics, brief transient sounds. The first contact carries the soft, disciplined acoustic profile of a diesel-electric submarine running carefully on battery power or at extremely controlled output. The second is similar, but not identical. A slight variation in tonal spacing, different enough to suggest two separate hulls, similar enough to suggest the same family, the same doctrine, the same purpose. The sonar supervisor makes the call. Probable naval contacts, probable submarines, 2 units. Nationality? The TAO asks. Not firm, but the profile is consistent with regional diesel boats. That is as far as he goes. No speculation, no dramatic guesswork, only what the ocean has given back. At 1:55 a.m., the captain enters CIC. Everyone feels the change before the report even sharpens.
Captain, both contacts are maneuvering in response to our movements.
Current assessment: coordinated submerged shadowing, possibly positioning into a hostile pattern. The captain studies the screen. Red-lit faces, quiet voices. Bearing lines slowly converging into a shape no surface warfare officer would mistake for harmless traffic. Launch recommendation? The air detachment officer is already on circuit. Helo can be turning in under 3 minutes. The captain does not hesitate.
Make it happen.
Above them, on the flight deck, the ship remains almost completely blacked out. Only filtered deck lighting cuts through the darkness. Sailors move low and fast around the MH-60R Seahawk. Their wands are dim. Their voices disappear beneath the rising rotor wash. As the aircraft comes alive, the blades begin to turn. The helicopter is not lifting into a scene. It is lifting into absence. Empty black water. No horizon, no visible target. Only coordinates, bearings, and the knowledge that somewhere below the surface, 2 submarines are working themselves into position. Back in CIC, the ship makes a second maneuver. Helm, steady on new course. Engines, increase 5 knots. The destroyer gathers speed and pushes forward through the dark water. The contacts react. The starboard side submarine cuts inward slightly, trying to preserve its relative angle. The port side boat slows just enough to remain ahead of the U.S.
Ship's projected path instead of slipping behind it. It is patient, it is professional, and it is deliberate. The Tao says it flatly. They're not just following, they're solving. That is the moment the room hardens. Because a submarine solving the geometry is not simply observing. It is building options. At 1:58 a.m., the Seahawk lifts off. The deck crew clears the area as the helicopter noses out over the water and disappears almost instantly into the night.
Inside the aircraft, 2 pilots and a sensor operator are already tied into the ship's tactical picture. They do not need to see the submarines. They need to help locate them acoustically. Sonar buoys are prepped. Dipping sonar checklist complete. Defensive systems monitored. But for now, the mission is localization, not escalation. Inside CIC, a new bearing update flashes. The port side contact has edged farther ahead of the ship's track than before. The captain sees it immediately. If the warship continues on its current line, it risks moving toward a submarine that is no longer trying to stay outside the picture. It is trying to control the front of it. Recommend further course change, the navigator says. The captain nods once. Do it. The ship alters course again, sharper this time. Sonar listens. Then, there it is. A brief spike in mechanical noise from the forward contact. A tiny burst of speed. Then, silence. Not panic, repositioning. The operator looks up from the stack.
He's trying to recover the angle. The captain turns slightly toward the Tau. That confirms intent. Aye, sir. Now the warship understands the shape forming around it. One submarine is pressing from the side, forcing decisions. The other is trying to cut ahead, where a surface ship's path becomes more predictable and the geometry becomes cleaner. A surface ship at night can live with uncertainty. It cannot ignore two submarines building a coordinated position around it.
At 2:01 a.m., the undersea plot redraws again. The starboard contact is now inside a range bracket nobody in CIC likes. The forward contact has shifted into a position that no longer looks like shadowing at all. It looks like interception. Then sonar reports the line that changes the tone of the entire ship. Contact Alpha now holds a highly unfavorable bearing. Recommend assuming defensive posture. The captain does not hesitate. Very well, he says, voice calm, almost quiet. Now we assume defensive posture. 2:01 a.m. local time. Now we assume defensive posture. The captain's words do not echo inside the Combat Information Center. They settle into it. No one speaks for a beat. Then the room moves. Not fast, not loudly, correctly. The undersea plot is no longer a question mark. It is a tactical problem with two serious answers. One submarine is pressing from starboard, holding a bearing that could force the US warship into a dangerous angle.
The second has drifted ahead of the ship's projected track, shaping the front of the battle space like a gate waiting to close. A few minutes earlier, the destroyer was trying to understand the contacts. Now, it is trying to break their geometry. Above the water, the MH-60R Seahawk races into darkness, its rotors cutting through the humid night air. Nose pitched low over a sea that looks like black glass. Inside the cockpit, the crew is working from the same tactical picture feeding the ship below. Bearings, trend lines, probable intercept zones. The pilot keeps his eyes outside. The sensor operator keeps his eyes on the mission. Stand by. First buoy pattern. Back in CIC, the captain leans over the undersea display. I want localization. Force them to react. Aye, sir. The Seahawk reaches the first predicted box and begins the pattern. One sonobuoy drops cleanly into the dark. Then another. Then a third. Each one is spaced to catch movement beneath the thermal layer. Small splashes vanish instantly behind the aircraft, but the sensors come alive the moment they hit the water. They are listening into places the ship cannot fully hear from its own position. On the destroyer, the sonar team starts receiving new data. Weak at first, then better. A flicker of sound from Contact Bravo, the forward boat. Machinery noise, a brief shift in movement. Just enough to prove the submarine has changed depth or speed to recover position after the destroyer's last turn.
The Tau sees the update and says it quietly.
He felt the move. That matters. The US warship does not need the submarines to panic. It only needs them to keep adjusting. Every adjustment leaves a fingerprint, a new bearing, a momentary noise spike, a clue to depth, course, and intent. The destroyer comes left again, sharper this time. Not a wild, evasive turn. Controlled, deliberate, measured in degrees and seconds. The kind of maneuver that says the captain is not trying to run. He is redrawing the geometry.
Sonar calls it instantly. Starboard contact correcting. Forward contact slowing. Holding. Now moving again. The picture sharpens. One submarine is trying to preserve pressure off the ship's flank. The other submarine is trying not to lose the bow cut it has spent the last 10 minutes building. Together, they are still a serious problem. But now they are reacting instead of dictating. That is the shift. At 2:04 a.m.,
the Seahawk drops its second pattern farther ahead and slightly lower on the destroyer's new axis of advance. This time, the sensor operator gets a cleaner return. There, possible submerged contact crossing left to right, deeper than expected. That is contact Bravo. The forward submarine has dipped harder beneath the layer, trying to use colder water to bend sound, shrink its acoustic profile, and disappear just long enough to keep its position. It is a smart move, a professional one, but it also means something else.
It means the submarine knows it has been noticed. Inside CIC, the air gets tighter. Bravo is defensive, the TAO says. He's trying to stay in the game without exposing himself. The captain does not answer right away. He watches the bearing lines update one more time, then turns towards sonar. What about Alpha? The sonar supervisor studies the trace. Still cleaner than Bravo, Captain. Shallower, more disciplined, but he's working harder now. Then, almost on cue, Alpha makes a mistake. Not a large one, not dramatic. Just a short burst of propulsion noise, barely 2 seconds long. A little too much throttle, a little too much urgency. Maybe the submarine commander realizes the destroyer is sliding out of his preferred arc. Maybe he believes there is still time to recover it. Either way, the Seahawk hears it. The ship hears it. And suddenly, Alpha's box gets smaller. Alpha localized tighter. The sensor operator reports from the helo. Recommend increased prosecution pattern. That recommendation changes the mood instantly. The destroyer is no longer simply avoiding the setup. It is now building pressure of its own. Approved, the captain says. The Seahawk banks and turns back in, now flying a tighter curve over Alpha's probable track. Another sonobuoy drops, then another. Their overlapping coverage begins stitching together the submarine's hiding space like netting pulled across a dark opening. Below the surface, Alpha shifts again. This time, the acoustic trace comes with more flow noise.
More urgency. He's moving. The Tau taps the undersea plot once. He's either losing patience or losing room. The destroyer increases speed again, just enough to complicate any solution that depends on a steady course and predictable movement. Counter-acoustic systems are ready. Not deployed, just ready. The crew understands that the next few minutes may decide whether this remains a shadow contest or turns into something far more serious.
At 2:08 a.m., Bravo tries one last correction ahead of the ship's track. For a moment, it almost works. Then the Seahawk's buoy field catches him. Not fully, not perfectly, but enough. Now both submarines are in the tactical picture at the same time. Alpha is off the flank, pressured and getting louder. Bravo is ahead, deeper and more cautious, but no longer invisible. The two-boat squeeze that looked so dangerous 20 minutes ago is beginning to distort under the weight of US coordination. Bridge, CIC, sonar, aviation. This is what the Americans do better than almost anyone at sea. Not noise, not bravado, integration. Alpha turns first, a real turn, not drift, not trimming, a genuine change in intent. The sonar operator hears the stern swing. Water rolls differently over metal. Machinery load shifts. The bearing starts to open. He's breaking out, the operator says. But Bravo does not. Not yet. Bravo holds. Too long.
Long enough for everyone inside CIC to understand that one submarine has decided caution is survival, while the other still believes it can salvage the geometry. The captain looks at the forward contacts line on the display. He does not blink. He does not rush. He simply sees the truth of it. One is leaving, he says. The Tau nods once. And one is still trying. Then the sensor operator in the Seahawk hears something through the buoy field that freezes every eye on the tactical picture. A metallic shift. Brief, distinct, internal. Not propulsion.
Not random. The report comes in flat and cold. Possible transient from Bravo, consistent with internal launch-related activity.
Nobody in CIC breathes deeper. Nobody leans back.
The whole ship seems to narrow onto that one line. And in that moment, the night stops being a shadow game. 2:08 a.m. local time. Possible transient from Bravo, consistent with internal launch-related activity. The report lands in CIC like a steel weight. No one says what everyone is thinking. They do not need to. On a naval vessel, certain sounds have only a few meanings, and none of them are good when they come from a submarine already working its way into a dangerous position ahead of your track. The captain's voice stays level. Execute defensive maneuvering profile, now. The response is immediate. On the bridge, the helmsman brings the ship into a sharp, controlled turn. Not reckless, precise.
Engines answer a second later, driving more power into the screws as the destroyer claws for speed and changes aspect at the same time. The goal is simple: break the picture, spoil the angle, force the submarine to solve the entire problem again under pressure. Below in CIC, the undersea plot starts moving fast. Bravo is still ahead, deeper than before, trying to hold the front of the battle space, the place where a surface ship's path becomes easiest to predict. Alpha, the starboard boat that had started to peel away, is now opening its bearing farther and farther. Whatever confidence existed in the two submarine squeeze is collapsing. Bravo is alone now, and that makes it more dangerous. A single submarine commander who believes the window is closing can become more determined, not less.
Decoy package, stand by, the TOW orders. The launcher crews are already in position. The destroyer was built for nights like this, not because it seeks confrontation, but because it was designed to survive it. Every move has a countermove. Every angle has a way to break it. At night, in black water, against a diesel boat searching for one clean opportunity, survival belongs to the ship that can think while moving. The MH-60R Seahawk swings back over Bravo's probable track. This time, the helicopter is fully committed to pressure and localization. No more wide passive shaping, no more gentle searching. The Seahawk tightens its orbit and begins building a direct acoustic cage, stacking buoy data over buoy data.
Inside the aircraft, the sensor operator hears Bravo more clearly than at any point in the night. The submarine is deeper now, but it is not calm. There is more flow noise, more load in the machinery. The sound of a boat trying to preserve its position, while the target refuses to stay where it should. On the destroyer, sonar confirms it. Bravo bearing shifting rapidly. He is correcting for our turn. The captain does not take his eyes off the plot. He wants the angle back. Yes, sir. And there it is. The truth of the entire encounter. Bravo is not leaving. Bravo is not simply watching. Bravo is fighting the geometry. And that means the US warship was right to assume a defensive posture. At 2:10 a.m., the Seahawk crew drops another tight buoy string directly across Bravo's likely path. The pattern is not random. It is a wall. If the submarine pushes through, it gets louder. If it dives deeper, it risks losing position. If it turns away, the opportunity disappears. For the first time all night, the Americans are not simply reacting. They are applying pressure. Contact Bravo, increasing speed, the helo reports. That is the mistake. Brief, measurable, enough. The acoustic signature blooms slightly across the buoy field, like a hidden shape stepping too close to a floodlight. It is still not a perfect picture. Undersea operations almost never are, but it is enough to narrow the box one more time. The TOW points to the plot. He's committing.
The destroyer leans into another course change. This one is designed to do two things at once: move the ship off the line Bravo has been trying to hold, and force the submarine's calculations to become outdated. Course, speed, aspect, noise profile, everything changes together. That is how a surface ship survives when a submarine is close to a good answer. On the flight deck, beneath the darkness, launch crews secure gear and brace against the wash from the helo overhead. Inside CIC, the only light is red.
The only sound is information. Bravo now offset from previous danger bearing. Not enough. Alpha continuing to withdraw. Forget Alpha. Stay on Bravo.
The captain's voice cuts through the room without rising. No drama, no wasted energy, just focus. Every system on the ship narrows toward the one submarine that still believes it can turn the night in its favor. Then sonar picks up another transient, shorter this time, sharper. A metallic movement inside Bravo's hull, followed almost immediately by a burst of propulsion correction. The room goes still for half a second. The Tau speaks first. He's trying to finalize. The captain answers at once. Challenge him. That order moves through the ship in seconds. The destroyer's undersea warfare team shifts from passive tracking into deliberate pressure. Tactical signaling, direct acoustic challenge, a message sent into the water without words. You have been found. You are being tracked, and your margin is gone.
The effect is immediate. Bravo breaks. Not cleanly, not gracefully, but unmistakably. The submarine yaws hard beneath the layer, abandoning the line it had been trying to hold ahead of the destroyer's bow. The acoustic picture flares with turn noise and turbulence. Water rushes over hull and control surfaces. Machinery strain rises. The dangerous geometry that had looked so threatening 2 minutes earlier begins to tear apart in real time. "He's turning away!" the helo operator calls.
Confirming, sonar reports. Bravo opening bearing rapidly. That is the moment the trap collapses. The destroyer is no longer sailing into a prepared intercept line. Now the submarine is the one trying to get clear of an American ship, an American helicopter, and an American acoustic net that has taken the dark water away from him piece by piece. But the pressure does not stop. The Seahawk stays above him. The destroyer keeps maneuvering. No one assumes the danger is over just because Bravo reacted first. At 2:13 a.m., Alpha is effectively gone from the immediate picture, its bearing widening into irrelevance. Bravo is now the only serious problem, and that problem is changing shape. No longer the one controlling the hunt, not yet the one being fully controlled, but close. The Tau watches the updated plot redraw itself. Minutes ago, 2 Iranian submarines had nearly boxed in a US warship at night.
Now, one is pulling away, and the other has been forced out of its preferred angle. The captain looks at Bravo's new line and speaks without emotion. We're clear of his solution. No one celebrates, because they all see the next truth at the same time. The Americans have survived the trap. Now, they are building one of their own. 2:13 a.m. local time. The geometry on the screen no longer belongs to the submarines. For the first time since that first faint transient was heard beneath the thermal layer, the US warship is no longer inside someone else's plan. Bravo, the forward submarine that had nearly shaped the space across the bow, is now opening bearing fast. Alpha, the boat that had tried to hold pressure of the starboard side, is fading wider into the dark, no longer part of the immediate contest. The two-submarine squeeze is over. But no one inside the Combat Information Center relaxes, because submarines are most dangerous in the seconds after you think the situation has passed. "Maintain pressure," the captain says. "Aye, sir." The destroyer holds speed, not running, not chasing blindly, just driving forward with purpose while every system stays locked on the last submarine still inside the tactical box. Above, the MH-60R Seahawk keeps circling over Bravo's probable path, feeding back buoy data that tells a very different story than it did only minutes earlier. More flow noise, more turn noise, more urgency. Bravo is no longer shaping the setup. Bravo is trying to get out from under one.
Inside the helo, the sensor operator adjusts his headset and listens again.
The acoustic picture is still imperfect. It always is. But it is clear enough to hear a commander under pressure. A boat changing depth, altering course, pushing propulsion just a little too hard for stealth. Every correction solves one problem and creates another. Every attempt to disappear leaves another acoustic scar in the water. On the destroyer, sonar updates the track. Bravo continuing to withdraw, bearing widening.
Depth variable.
The TAL studies the movement.
He's trying to break contact through the layer.
The captain nods once.
Do not let him do it clean.
That does not mean recklessness. It means pressure. Constant, professional, disciplined. The kind that convinces a submarine commander he is one poor decision away from becoming the center of an American response pattern in open water. At 2:15 a.m., the Seahawk pushes farther ahead of Bravo's escape line and drops another pair of sonobuoys. The spacing is tight, intentional. Not to end the contest, to deny comfort, to deny uncertainty, to deny the submarine the one thing it needs most right now. A quiet seam in the ocean to slip through. Bravo turns again. The helo hears it instantly. The ship hears it a second later. He rejected the gap, the sensor operator says. Exactly. Because he no longer trusts the water in front of him. That is how control works in undersea warfare. Not always through impact. Not always through noise.
Sometimes it is done by narrowing every safe choice until the other side has to choose the least damaging retreat. Alpha is now little more than a fading contact on the outer plot. Whether its commander lost confidence, lost the angle, or simply realized the Americans had broken the setup too early, it no longer matters. That submarine is gone from the immediate action. Bravo is not. Bravo is still in it. Still trying to survive the consequences of holding too long.
At 2:17 a.m., the destroyer makes one more measured course adjustment. Not to chase the submarine directly, but to keep the tactical picture honest and prevent any sudden return into a dangerous bearing. The captain is not trying to win a dramatic victory. He is making sure the night ends with his ship intact, his crew safe, and the other side forced to remember exactly why US Navy warships are so difficult to corner. The bridge stays dark, CIC stays cold. The sea outside remains black and unreadable. But beneath that surface, the hierarchy is no longer in doubt.
Bravo speed decreasing,
sonar reports.
That means the submarine commander has accepted the truth.
The opportunity is gone. The moment is gone. And the Americans are still there. A few seconds later, the Seahawk crew catches another brief but telling change in the buoy field. Bravo is dropping deeper, angling away, no longer trying to preserve any kind of dangerous line at all. This is not repositioning.
This is disengagement.
The TAO lets the update settle before he says it.
He's done.
The captain does not answer immediately. He waits for confirmation. Another bearing update, another depth estimate, another widening line on the screen. Then he gives the order. Continue track, no overextension, hold pressure until he clears. That is pure US Navy. No chest thumping, no wasted force. The objective was never noise, it was control. And control has now been taken back completely. At 2:21 a.m., Bravo's acoustic profile weakens as it moves deeper and farther from the buoy field. Not vanished, just no longer useful as an immediate problem. The Seahawk remains overhead long enough to make sure the withdrawal is real. The destroyer maintains readiness long enough to make sure this is not a trick. Only when both tracks, Alpha and Bravo, have widened beyond the danger envelope does the room inside CIC begin to breathe again. No cheering, no applause, just small movements, a jaw unclenching, a headset adjusted, a watchstander taking his first full breath in 10 minutes. The captain looks once more at the open geometry on the screen. No box, no intercept line, no coordinated pressure bearing. Just two retreating submarines fading back into the dark water they had tried to control. Minutes earlier, they had moved in under darkness, believing the night would hide them. Instead, the night exposed them. The warship holds course. The Seahawk turns back toward the ship.
The Arabian Sea swallows the evidence, as oceans always do. No debris, no burning sky, no headline image. Just a US warship still moving forward, and 2 Iranian submarines forced back into the deep with nothing to show for the risk they took. That is how nights like this are won. Not with panic, not with noise, with discipline, integration, pressure, timing, and somewhere below the black water, 2 submarine commanders now understand the same thing.
They thought darkness would make the US warship vulnerable.
Instead, it made the US Navy unstoppable.